Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. I'm in a little bit early, so we'll give people some time to join us as they get logged in. The training lasts about an hour and a half or so. We do record these trainings, so if you can't stay for the whole time, that's fine. You can always come back later and find the complete training on YouTube. Feel free to make use of the chat feature in YouTube to ask questions about any feature as I go over them, and I'll try to address the question at that time. And if I miss the question, I will try to come back to the relevant feature and go over it. We also have, my colleague runs the business SMS webinar series, which the next one is this coming Thursday, the 29th. And I believe it is doing with call to action messages, how to best make use of those. And those are also recorded, so you'll be able to actually see the link to the recorded ones in the show notes of this stream. We will not be training or having a training session next Tuesday in observance of the 4th of July holiday, but we will be back on Tuesday, July 11th. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So here you see our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information in order for you to log in. All right, the first is your email address, and that should be in all lowercase letters. Then we need your password, which is case sensitive. And then lastly, we need your account name, typically your business name or organization name. Now, if you have trouble logging in, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that, flips it around, and then we still need your email address, right? All lowercase letters. And then down here, we need one of the 2 pieces of information. So we need either your account name or a phone number that's on the account. And that's one of your customer-facing phone numbers. Typically, most people use the account name. Click on the Reset Password button there at the bottom, and then you'll get an email. The email will say basically to give you instructions on how to reset your password with a link. You click on the link, that takes you to your user account page, basically, so you can go in and change your password. It'll log you right back out, right? Take you back to this page, and then you type in the information again. And you have the option to click on the Remember Me box, and then you get logged in. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis. In fact, I was in here earlier this morning. So when I log in, it's taking me right to the dashboard page. If it's your first time logging into your Dash account, you actually get taken to your user account page, which we were just talking about in terms of the reset password. You can always get there by clicking on your name over at the top right. And that will take you, it's a big pop-up essentially, so it's covering the dashboard page. But you're here on your account page. And again, the most common thing people do here is change the password, right? Especially if you just signed up with us, right? The system created the password for you, and it's probably long and complicated. And you're like, yeah, I'm never going to remember that. So this is where you would change it here. Now, also that first time logging in, the Dash Wizard pop-ups will come up, right? Basically telling you what certain things are, and they'll cover like how to change your password. As a system admin, you also have these options here on the left, right? So you can get to the account level settings. So you could change like your time zone or the display language, for example. If you ever need to change your account name, you just need to email our billing team, billing@virtualpbx.com, because they have to make sure everything syncs up properly in terms of your subscriptions and whatnot. A new feature we've added recently is this option here for add-ons. This right now is mostly so you can enable the text forward feature, but there'll be more coming forward, so you can add features on. Some of them could increase your bill. Usually that's denoted someplace, but worst case, you can always talk to our account services team to verify if a particular add-on will increase your bill or not. But once you're done on these user setting pages, just click on the close box towards the top right. You'll be back on the dashboard. Now again, that first login, pop-ups will come up telling you what certain things are. Those pop-ups will also come up on the users tab and the groups tab. And speaking of those tabs, over here on the left, we have several different tabs. All right, so we're on the dashboard up here at the top, right? Then working down main number, auto attendance, etc. We have a groups tab down here. Further down is users. So basically, after I'm done talking about this dashboard page, we're going to go to the users page, and then groups, and then to main number. And the reason for that is for setting up your full main number in terms of like how it route things to people or places on your system, you need to have them created first. All right, so let's go back all the way up here at the top. So again, you have your name. Click on that to get to your change your password, for example. For many of you, to the immediate right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle for Do Not Disturb. All right, you can click on it. It'll make it white, meaning it's on. Means you're not getting calls. Right, calls will go to voicemail. All right, click it again so it's black, and now you are getting calls. The reason I don't have it is my user is part of the call center, which is an upgrade feature, but the D&D toggle and call center don't work well together. All right, then to the right, I have this little phone icon. This will launch the web phone. Right now it shows up here because I have a web phone on my user, and it'll open up a new tab and take me to webphone.virtualpbx.net. It has a login, and it uses my same login that I use for Dash, right? So it's identical information, email address, password, account name. The web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls, right? The mobile versions of Chrome or Firefox are not supported for this feature. The web phone does count as a VoIP device. All right, next up we have the little chat bubble here. This actually opens up the virtual text application. So if you have virtual text enabled on your account, open a new tab. It does have its own login, which is different from your Dash login, but you can then log in and text to and from your customers. Next, we have the question mark icon. This actually opens up the chat feature in terms of chatting with our support team, right? So you can get some help online in terms of how to set up a feature, etc. The three horizontal line icon here, the menu icon, this gets you to other Dash features. The majority of our training will be here on the dashboard, be at the top right or the top left, right? But we have these other ones which we'll be getting to at least briefly, right? Little arrow to the right here, that's your logout icon. Down here in the middle, total users, I have 23, right? So these are people who make and receive calls on my account. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis, meaning that means the more people you add, the higher your bill will be. Then I have total devices, 35. One thing I should cover before I get too much further, right? If you don't already know VoIP phones or VoIP device, right? That's just because VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, and that just means you use your internet connection to make and receive calls. Right now, in here under my devices, this first one here, soft phone, right? So that's a software application. Uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, so it counts as a VoIP device. Right, cell phone, you can add a cell phone or a landline number as a device on your account. So we can send calls to those phone numbers. Something to keep in mind is when a call reaches a cell phone through our system, right, that once you pick up that call, you can't transfer it to another staff member on the account, right? It's just an endpoint. The way around that would be to use a soft phone application on your cell phone. So instead of having your cell phone number, you basically answer the call on the app, and then you can transfer. Right, here we have the web phone, and that looks like I have 5 of those. This one here, SIP phone, this is a piece of hardware, right? So physical VoIP phone sits on your desk, still connected to, usually via an Ethernet cable to your router, they can receive calls. Right, VoIP, general term, SIP is a kind of physical hardware phone that uses VoIP, right? There are other protocols out there in use, so when you're shopping, just make sure it's SIP compliant or SIP compatible. When we get to adding devices, I'll show you the manufacturers that we support and the models for auto provisioning, which makes it a lot easier to add devices. Down here, I have unregistered devices 2, and that means I have disabled 2 of my devices on my Dash devices tab. Maybe I'll use them later, maybe I won't, who knows. Down next is total phone numbers, right? 30. Your account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. And so I should be well over most of the typical offerings. If you just signed up with us, check on the pricing page, and usually under like there's a detailed uh, option, which will open up more information about numbers and whatnot. Typically, it's $1.99 per month per phone number, but again, check the pricing page. If you're on an older plan, then you don't want to double check with our services team. All right, first breakdown here I have is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Right, assigned number means you're using it. Someone can call a number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, be sending a fax, or join a conference. Right, spare number counts towards your allotment of numbers. You're just currently not using it. Whether that's because you're about to open a new location, so you have the number ready so that way you can get all your marketing materials set up, but you're not putting it in use yet because there's no one there to answer the phone. Or you just don't want to call on a location that's not open yet. Or like you had a promotion running and it's about to end, or it ended, so you took a number out of service, so you're not getting calls about an invalid promotion. Down here, I have USDID and US toll-free. Right, US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. USDID just means a US local number, right? So yeah, if you have a number in, say, Miami, Florida, counts as USDID, just as if you had one in Portland, Oregon. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you are so inclined, you would need to email our porting team, and that's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you wish to have a phone number in. They will let you know if we can get the number and if there are any additional requirements. Right? Those requirements come from the country in question. Down here, I have conference bridges, and I have 7 of them, and that means on 7 of my users, I've enabled the conference feature, meaning they are moderating or hosting the conference or conferences, depending on how many are going on. Now, towards the top right, I have my main number block here. These 4 phone numbers, they all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location on my system. They're all going to play the same main greeting, for example. I have the conference room number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. This is a number everyone dials to join a conference, right? Whether they're your staff members, your clients, your vendors, that's the number they dial. They'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. This will also allow you to set up your fax box to allow for outbound faxing if you're so inclined. You have your company directory, and there's 2 links here, one for CSV and one for softphone. The CSV downloads a CSV file, right? So you use it with a spreadsheet program. It shows your staff members' names, their extensions, and their devices. The softphone directory is for use specifically with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application, right? So if you're using our softphone app on a Windows or Mac PC, you would download this file and upload it to that particular softphone app on your computer. That will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX softphones on your account. So if you're only using the VirtualPBX softphone as your only devices for all your staff, then you can see who's on a call and who's not. Now, if you have staff with a mix of devices, right? So some people have cell phones, some people have VoIP phones or SIP phones as well as the soft phone. You only can see if they're using their soft phone app, right? So you can, like, I can call my colleague Mike, and he may pick up, say, "Hey, I have to call you back. I'm on my other phone," right? And then I have to wait until he's ready, or basically he lets me know that he's ready to take a call. The VirtualPBX store, this opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone. And then down here we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. This is used for a couple things. One, it's used to program a third-party softphone, right? So if you're going to use a softphone app from someone else, this is one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to get that softphone to work with us. The other most common thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. So on Dash, if you set up your fax box, you can set it up so that your whole company can send out create an email to send a fax, right? It's just use your company's email domain. So your staff members would create an email like normally you would. In the to field, the plus sign, number 1, then the area code phone number they're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then they need to attach or add in the account realm. After that, they just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file. The system does not send anything that's in the subject line or in the body of the email, and you're limited to one attachment per email. All right, we're going to go up here in this blue bar where it has sandbox training and then caller ID. So I click here. This expands out to a big box. Now this pull down, which unfortunately doesn't show up on my streaming software, are my 4 main numbers. Right, so I can pick any of those 4 numbers. That number becomes the default number for, like, say, for my VoIP phones when they make an outbound call. By default, this is the number they will use. Then down here, I have the company caller ID name, or CNAME. This allows me to input up to 15 characters. That includes spaces or special characters that we would then associate with this main phone number when you make outbound calls. This is completely optional. You don't have to do it. Company emergency information, or E911. The system wants a North American address here. And for any Canadian customers, zip code, just put in your postal code here. And where it says state, put your 2-character province abbreviation. Once you're done, click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you had information here in the CNAM field, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them up to 3 business days to update their databases. There's some caveats that you should know about using the CNAM feature. One, first and foremost, not every carrier supports it. So if your outbound call happens to route through one of those carriers, that CNAM information will not reach your destination. Probably more significant than that is the receiving carrier, right, the last carrier. They get final say about what shows up on their phones, on their network, right? So we send out this phone number, this caller ID, gets to whatever phone number we're reaching out to, right? That carrier sees that information. Now, option 1 is they can just pass it all the way through. Everyone's happy. Option 2, they can send the number through, look up their own database, which may not match what we've updated, and then put their own caller ID name with that phone number. And that shows up on the person's phone. And then the third option, which is most common among the cell phone providers, is they see that the caller ID information, they send the number through, and that's it. They won't send anything else. Many cell phone providers actually want to charge their subscribers an additional fee in order to have that CNAM information show up. Last time I checked on my carrier, they wanted $10 a month for it. I know others range around that same range, between $5 and $10 a month. All right, hold music. So on your Dash account, you can upload your own media files to play as hold music. Now, for this music on hold, this is defined as after a call has reached your staff members, right? They've picked up, they answered the call initially, and then press hold on their VoIP phone. And that's when this music on hold will play. Now, you can upload your own media files. The system will play back .wav and .mp3 files under 1 megabyte in file size, right? But you click Browse to find the file, click the up arrow icon, and then click on Save Changes after it finishes uploading. In general, I recommend using or recording files in mono, not in stereo, as that will give you more duration in terms of the file size. Also, this is a pull down here. It would show any other media file you have on the account. So if you already have media files in place, you can choose one that's already there instead of uploading. All right, hours is actually part of a main number, so we'll get to that in just a little bit. Let's skip down here on the left to users. This is where you add users to your account, and you can see who's currently on your account. People with a gray suit or gray person icon, these are your standard users. They have very limited access. In fact, the typical standard user only has access to their user portal. They won't be able to see any of this. People with the blue suit icon, however, are system admins, so they can do all the stuff we've already been talking about and everything going forward. Up here at the top, that's where you add a new user, and you're essentially filling out a form, right? First name, last name, you just need to have some kind of text. We have literally seen customers put in like a and then period for user. Now, over here, the email address used for a login, this has to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse an email address for multiple people. This is also how the system communicates with the user, right? So voicemail notifications, uh, password resets, right? This is the email address that the system by default will send those emails to. Password, you create a password for the new user. Down here, you've got the main extension number for the user, right? Now the system will give you a suggestion, right? So this system will start it off with extension 1000. So it's saying the next available one is 1006, right? So that's probably one that was deleted or the user was deleted, so that extension number is available. Again, you can change it to whatever you want. I usually recommend using 4-digit extensions just because that gives you the most versatility and growth potential. Down here, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user. Right, that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So if you create the user and you added a VoIP phone to the user, right, get the VoIP phone registered, they can pick up the phone, dial *98 on their VoIP phone. That will log them directly into this voicemail box you just created at the same time as the user. The system will then walk that person through creating the voicemail box PIN number, recording their name, which will be used from the Smart PBX directory, and then lastly, record their voicemail box greeting. Right, so then they're basically all set up. Here is your option to include the user in the user directory or the Smart PBX directory. You can always change this later. This option here is to send emails to an alternate address. So let's say you had to use a dummy email address for the email used for login. Then you can put in, click on this box here, and then enter in a different email address. So like your own, so that way you at least have the login information to send to the person later. There's that. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I do recommend typically doing this. Basically, once you click on create user, they get an email welcoming them to their Dash account and it gives them their login information. Right? If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Now, if you just started with this, then it's possible you're the only user on your account and you don't have an extension number yet. So what you would want to do for your own user, right, is click on the extension number box here, click add an extension number, and then enter an extension number for yourself, and then click on save changes. And the reason we don't assign you an extension number off the bat is to give you the choice of how you want your extension numbers to be. All right, once a user is created, you can click on the user's name. All right, so here you can change their name if you need to. All right, here's your option to change their credentials. All right, so you can change their email, their password. You can also send them a password reset email directly if you need to. Here you can temporarily change the voicemail box PIN number. You can also check the voicemail PIN numbers on the voicemails tab down here. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Now over here on the right, where it's this little person icon, this allows you to change an admin to a user or user into an admin. If you're the only user, that means you're an admin by default, so please don't change yourself to a standard user. Doesn't happen very often. Little time icon here, or clock icon. This allows you to change the time zone for the user, so that way their voicemail timestamps are correct for them. For example, little flag icon, this allows you to change the display language for the user of these web pages, right? So you have English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time to send calls to a VoIP phone or a landline. If you're using, if your staff member is only going to use a cell phone number, I'd recommend changing this to at least 30 seconds. Now, for Ariel here, it's grayed out because he's got a user feature enabled called Follow Me, which controls the ring time of the individual devices. All right, so users have their extension numbers box here. You can add additional so people can have multiple extension numbers if you need them to. Here we have a phone number box. So users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. You can either buy a new number, or add from spare, right? So add from spare means you're reusing a phone number, right? So, or you took a number that wasn't being used and now you're putting it in use, right? Uh, buy numbers means you're adding new numbers to the account. So here we'll go for adding from spare, right? So I only have these two spare numbers right now. I can check on the one I want to use. I click add selected, and then I click save changes. And don't show why it does that, but then so now Aria has this one phone number. Let's say I want to add another one. So then I have local or toll free. Toll free, use toll free prefix that you want to work with, right? Just click on the box in front or the button in front of it, and those system will give you a list of available phone numbers. And you can scroll down and see more numbers. All right, click add next to the number you want, or multiple. You can add like 5 numbers here if I wanted to. Now, just because I added it to my cart, I haven't reserved a number, right? In fact, if I keep talking and talking, it's possible that someone could take this number while I'm still talking, right? So basically, when you're done adding numbers, you want to click buy numbers. Now the system is verifying that it was truly available, i.e. someone didn't grab it while I was talking. And then it adds it to this location, right? And then I click on save changes. And it's going to do that funny reset. So now you see here under Ariel's phone number box, he's got this little icon here. Anytime you see this icon, that lets you know there's multiple of that particular item. So in this case, phone numbers, right? You can see it under extensions, for example. So here you can see the 2 phone numbers. You have a little gear icon here, and anywhere you have a phone number, you'll have this gear icon option. You can set up the caller ID, right? So the outbound CNAM information, the ability to accept inbound CNAM information, right? So it show up on your staff members' phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address. This allows you then to assign specific phone numbers for E911 purposes only to your VoIP phones, right? So that way, if you have remote staff, they can have the correct address for their VoIP phones for if they need to call 911. Hopefully they never do, but if they do, you want to make sure they have the correct address being sent to emergency services. And then prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Basically gives them an idea of what the call is going to be about or how it got to them. Now, if you don't want to use a number on a location anymore, you just click unassign next to it and then save changes, and that makes them a spare number. So it's still on your account, but it's no longer in this location. All right, let's go back here. Oops. All right, so here we have is where you add devices, right? So add from spare would be any devices you're not currently using. You're just reusing them or using them for the first time, right? New device is where you add a brand new device. So first up is SIP phone. Again, physical hardware, right? You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? So Yealink, Polycom, Obaha, etc. Some like Yealink have a lot of models to choose from, right? Others like Obaha only have a few, right? In all cases, find the make and model of the phone you want to work with, right? And you should have the phone in your possession already. Down here, you need to give it a name. I recommend like the person's name and the word phone, right? So Bob's phone, right? Or its location, like break room phone. I recommend against using generic things like phone 1, phone 2, phone 3, because if people move around or phones move around, maybe 6 months, a year from now, you're not going to know where is this phone supposed to be, right? From, on the users page, you can tell, but on the devices tab, you may not. Then we have the MAC address. The MAC address is unique for each phone. It's a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can also usually get this under its status or sometimes basic settings, depends on the phone manufacturer. But you would enter it here and then click on create device. Right, then you would click on save changes. But then you would come back here and click on the device name. Then under advanced, go to miscellaneous, and where it says allow reprovision, click on this unlock button here. Click on save changes and then save changes here. So now that tells the system that, hey, this phone is ready to be provisioned, i.e. ready to be registered onto this account. In terms of our dashboard, at this point, you're done. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface and basically give it a URL. Basically, you're telling it, hey, go here to get your config file. For the specifics of that, you're going to want to go to our support pages, and you're going to look up the document called auto provisioning phones, or just you can just do a search for auto provisioning. Now that document covers all of these manufacturers, right? So Polycom, Yealink, etc. It's going to have the screenshots of the specific manufacturers, what to look for, where to go, what to add in, and in some cases, some settings to check. Once you go all through that, you basically tell the confirm or update or whatever the nomenclature that the manufacturers use. Then you tell it to auto provision. The phone's going to reboot a couple times, and then it would show up as a green device on your account. All right. So next up we have is cell phone, and it's actually the same process for landline. So here you give it a name, right? So Bob's phone, or in this case Aaron's phone, and then the number, and you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on create device and then save changes. So let's look here at this one here, right? So we gave it a name, +1 area code and phone number. We go to advanced options. This is the default setup for a cell phone or landline. So when we route a call to this device, right, this cell phone, when you pick up, you're going to hear this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call, right? So then it connects you, you speak to the person, right? So that works great if there's an actual person there who's answering the call initially. Now, if, say, you've contracted out with another company to handle your after-hours calls, right? So it's an automated answering service that said, here's a phone number, just send all your calls here, we'll handle your calls after hours or whenever you want us to take. So on our system, you would come here, you would add that as a device, right? Whether it's cell phone or landline, you put +1 area code or number, but then what you want to do is under advanced options, right here, where it says allow use of cell phone voicemail, you want to put a check mark here and then save changes, right? So when you send a call, if we left it alone, right, and we just sent it here to that automated answering service, well, the automated answering service doesn't know to press 1, right? So the call actually never gets connected. You get a frustrated after hours customer, and you get frustrated with us because you're like, hey, how come the call didn't go through? Right? When you put this in place, now there's no message about this is a forwarded call and nothing to say about pressing 1. Instead, what happens is we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? So pickup tone, call connected, automated answering service handles call from there. If this is really my cell phone and I have this setting checked, so what can happen is my cell phone voicemail can pick up. That's still a pickup tone, so that inbound caller ends up on my personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. That's a personal preference sort of thing. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, is keep original caller ID. So when we send a call out to a cell phone or landline, the phone number that shows up on that display is that person who's calling in. Right? So customer Mary is calling in, customer Mary's phone number shows up on my cell phone. Now, if I've been getting hit by robo-dialers, or this upcoming year will be, this time next year, we'll probably all be getting hammered by political calls. So I might be letting calls go to voicemail, going, I don't recognize the number, not going to pick up. What I can do instead, right, is uncheck keep original caller ID. Right? Click on save changes and save changes there. So now when customer Mary calls me and it reaches my cell phone, I'll see this 424 number, my main number. Now, hopefully, I recognize my main number, so then I would answer the call and take it, and hopefully then complete the sale. All right, so next up is soft phone. Soft phone, right, that software application acts like a phone. Whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to your Dash account, you're going to get this warning message, and it's basically saying, hey, wireless VoIP technology is a thing. If you dial 911 from your VoIP phone and you're not at your normal location, that can cause a problem for for you and for the emergency services. So you might not want to do that if you're not at your normal location. Now, once you close that, you're going to get this big screen here. Now, by default, the system will default this to a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using someone else's soft phone application. Right? So let's say you're using Xlite from Counterpath. So here you would give it a name. You would copy the SIP username, click on the SIP password box. You'd copy and paste that into that other application you're using. And then here's the account realm. You do not want to change the SIP password. That will make things not work. And then you would click on create device, save changes, and then you work on provisioning that piece of software. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, however, right down here below where it says view configuration guide, there's a toggle, right? It says use third-party application. If you click on that, now it says use VirtualPBX application. So now all you do is give it a name. You click on create device, and then save changes. Once you click on save changes, this person gets an email saying your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. And it's going to have the login information for the soft phone. That's going to be different than their Dash login, as well as download links for the app. Now, the only way to add a VirtualPBX soft phone onto your account is directly onto a user. Right? There's a devices tab over on the left. If you go there and add a soft phone, you can only add a third-party soft phone there. The other thing you want to add directly to a user is the web phone. Right, you still get that warning message. Right, you just give it a name, click on create device, and then click on save changes. And the reason you want to do this here on the user page is the web phone uses the user's Dash login information. Right, so it needs to be associated with the user for it to work at all. All right, next up we got user features. So first up is caller ID number. So this is designed for users who have their own phone number. You turn it on, you select their phone number, and then you click on save changes. And what that does is this phone number becomes their outbound caller ID from their web phones, right? So instead of your main number being the default, so that 42 phone number on the dashboard, by default for all my VoIP phones, that's the outbound caller ID. But if I turn on the caller ID number, then this user's personal number that's assigned to them becomes their outbound caller ID. Virtual text. This is pretty easy. You click up here to turn it on. You select the phone number on the account. It can be a main number, it can be an auto attendant number, it can be a phone number assigned directly to the user. Then click on save changes. When you click on save changes, they get sent an email welcoming them to virtual text. They can download the app directly to their phone, or they can also on a browser go to virtualtext.app, Apple Paul, and log in that way. Again, it has a different login than your Dash login or your soft phone login. But this allows you to text your customers back and forth. You can also share numbers among your staff members. So like your main number can be shared among your staff. So that way you have multiple people keeping an eye on text coming to and from your main number. If this feature is not showing up on your account, you want to talk to our account services team. They should also cover this during your onboarding with them. There is what is referred to as SMS registration for businesses, especially. Basically, it's a I don't know, it's not technically a trend. It's basically a requirement for telecom now. And so on most accounts up here, it's not on this one here, but there'll be an SMS registration link there that you can go through the process there. But our account services team has the most information about the registration process. All right, voicemail. So you have to have an extension number for voicemail to work because it uses your voicemail, it uses your extension number and it mirrors that to your voicemail box number, right? So if your extension 1000, you have voicemail box 1000. So you click to enable. By default, the system will send voicemails to email, which means when a voicemail is left for you, right, you'll get an email message. The body of the email has the date, the time, phone numbers involved, voicemail box, and then it'll attach an MP3 attachment of the voicemail message, right? So you can just click, listen to it, and then call the person back. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot hold any more. by default, there are 3 ways to check your messages, right? I.e., listen to them, and 2 ways to manage your voicemail box. So one of the ways to listen to your voicemail box is via email, right? But you can't actually manage your voicemail box this way. Uh, so the next method is you can call into your system, right? So if you have your system set up on your main number to go into your virtual receptionist, which is pretty standard for most of our customers, when you hear that main greeting, you can hit *97 from any phone. That will tell the system that you want to check your voicemail. That's going to ask you for your voicemail box number, and then your voicemail box PIN number, right? So voicemail box number, password, essentially, right? Then you can review your messages over the phone. You can delete them over the phone. The other way is you log into dash.virtualpbx.com and go to your user portal. So let's close this box out here, up here at the top. So we have a user portal link, right? So admins have their own user portal, users have their own user portal. That defaults you right to your voicemail box tab. And there you can listen to your messages. You can download your messages. You can delete them as well. Now for any voicemail box, you can also choose to, right here, delete the voicemail from the system after a notification email is sent. Right? So let's say you just don't, you have staff that don't want to bother logging in. They just want to get the email and move on with their day. That's fine. You just put a check mark here. So this way, the voicemail boxes won't get full, right? But their only way they ever can check is via email, right? So if they have a problem with their email, they may lose messages. Transcribe. Basically, if you turn this on, the system listens to the voicemail and types it out in the body of the email notification. It does the best that it can. It's if people are not speaking into their microphone properly, or they have a bad mic, or they're getting a lot of background noise, that impacts the transcription. All right. Next up, we have Follow Me, and actually, let's take a user that's got at least a couple devices here. Actually, you can go to me. So Follow Me is best for users with multiple devices, right? Because this allows you to decide, hey, what order do I want your devices, and how long do I want to ring for each device? When you first enable it, it's going to look like this, right? Basically, you have to tell the system which phones do you want to make use of, right? And then you uncheck it, each device, and what they do is it starts off like this. Now, up here at the top, right, you have a distribute button, you have timestamps, and this last one you can edit. It defaults to 2 minutes. You can change this, right? Make it 60 seconds. You can make it 600. Now, the easy thing to do is click on distribute. So now calls to this user always ring in this order, right? So this OBA phone, the soft phone, web phone, and then finally the cell phone. Now, these are sliders, right? So I can click and drag so I can have like some more overlap, etc. And especially for the cell phone, you might want to have more time, right? Likewise, I can click and drag these and change the order, and then click distribute, right? And I can click sliders. Also, I can just do stuff like here, ring everything all at once at the same time, right? Whatever you do, then afterwards you click on Save Changes. Now, one caveat about the Follow Me feature is that if this user is part of a group, which we're getting into next, calls from that group ring all of their devices. It does not use the Follow Me setting from calls from the group. Right, so this only works when someone dials my extension number directly or they transfer the call to me. All right, fax box. Users can have their own fax box if you want them to. You just click here to enable, and then you need to select a number, right? So you need to select a spare number, right? A number you're not currently using, buy a new number, or you can add a new extension number. I recommend making use of a phone number because that means this person can send and receive faxes. If you only select the extension number, they can only ever receive a fax. And even then, you're probably limiting who can send them a fax, right? Like a lot of electronic fax services, at least the ones I've tested so far, they don't have a way to add an extension number. They just want you to put in a phone number and send, right? So in that case, they can't send faxes to this user. In terms of outbound faxing, the system uses the local fax box of the user and not the account level fax box. So when it says that when it tries to put caller ID for the outbound, it uses the extension number, which is going to fail. Conference bridge. Up here at the top, you click to enable. As an admin, the only thing you have to do is create a PIN number for them. Your users can change their conference pins on the user portal. And then here you can enable or disable video conferencing. By default, it's disabled. And this is actually only for internal use, right? Someone outside of your Dash account won't be able to make use of video conferencing. All right, call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. Failover mode is something the admins have to set up, right? The turning it off or on their own is done via the user portal or directly on a VoIP phone. But here, for failover mode, this is if their VoIP phone goes offline suddenly, you can forward to a phone number you designate. Now, if a user has multiple devices, including their cell phone, you don't really need to make use of call forwarding at all. But otherwise, you choose a mobile or desk phone, and then enter +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then you click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it will look like this. Right, so up here at the top is where you enable it. And then you need to tell the system what kind of calls to record. Right, so inbound or internal, right, that's an coworker call, right? Coworker Bob called me. Right, inbound external, customer Mary called me. Likewise, outbound internal means I called coworker Bob. And then outbound external, I called customer Mary. So we see either this, right? So the two customer-facing ones, or all four. Now your account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. You can check that. So if you just signed up, check under the pricing tab on our website, or you can contact our account services team. If you have heavy call volume and you record every call, we typically recommend making use of AWS integration and link to an AWS account of your own. So that way you can use AWS to store your call recordings, which again, for high volumes is going to be more cost effective. Music on hold. This means this allows you to set hold music for specific users, right? Instead of using the default on the main, or you don't want them to have that default main. So like for your sales staff, you click enable, you can upload a media file, right, .wav, .mp3, and then upload the file, click on save changes. So like your salespeople would have a hold message about, there's this current special is going on, or whatever you're currently promoting, whereas maybe the rest of your staff, you're like, yeah, they can have the generic one that we have set up on the dashboard page. Do not disturb. If you enable this on a user, that means that user is not getting calls. Right? Calls to them will go to voicemail, or they're simply not offered. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. Right? When you click enable, you need to create a hot desk ID. I usually just say make it their extension number, especially if you're making use of 4-digit extensions. You can choose if they have a PIN number or not, and then you click on Save Changes. And this is for like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. So say I come in the office on Tuesday, I sit down at desk number 2, I pick up the phone that's sitting there, dial *11 to turn on hot desking. I enter my hot desk ID, and the system will tell me that calls will now be sent to this device. The rest of my workday, calls from my user will be ringing at the phone I'm sitting at. End of my workday, I pick up the phone and hit *12, turn off hot desking. Right? And the next time I come into the office, say I sit at desk number 7 this time, Same process, pick up the phone, *11, enter my hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at desk number 7. All right, let's go to groups. So groups are hunt groups or ring groups. You see the group names here. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members to the right that you want to be in that group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. So you can always change the name if you need to. Right? You also have the option to delete a group if you don't need it any longer. And then you also have group call attempts. There's little arrows to the far right, so you can increase or decrease this as necessary. And that's just how many times the system's going to offer calls to the user or the users in the group. And then click on Save Changes. Next up, we have the members box. Here you see my staff members that are assigned to this group, and I'm using what's called blast ringing or ring all, right? So call comes in, it rings them all. Whoever gets the call first, right? Whoever answers the call first gets the call. Now, one thing that can happen is, let's say a call comes in, Aaron picks up, and Bob pick up. As far as they're concerned, basically the same time. The system then has to decide who's getting the call, right? So let's say it gives a call to Aaron. Well, Bob thinks he's got the call, and then he hears dead air. In the call logs, you'll see it as Bob lost race, but it's something to be aware of that can throw your staff members off. Now, if everyone's in the office, Bob could perk up. Oh, I hear Aaron on a call, so he probably got the call. Whereas if people are working remotely, that might be harder to pick up on. Now, this is similar to the follow me setting under the users, right? So up here at the top, you've got timestamps. I have the option to distribute, so now it's always ringing in this order. Calls to a group do not skip anyone, however, right? So call comes in and rings, and Bob's on the call, right? So a second call comes in. Bob might hear call waiting if he has that enabled on his device, but that second caller has to wait 24 seconds before it's offered to Aaron, and then Aaron can pick up, right? Now, obviously there's sliders, so I could slide it forward so that way they don't have to wait quite as long, right, for all of these people. But no matter what, if Bob is on a call, it offers it to him first. That's one of the advantages the call center or the queues, ACD queues have over groups, is that in a call coming into a queue goes to an available user, whereas call to a group always rings whoever's there. It doesn't matter if they're on a call or not. And just like under the follow me, right, I can change the order, right, flip people around, and then click distribute again. If I need to add more people to a group, right, click here on add group, and then click their names to add them, and then I would click distribute again. Obviously, if I need to remove them, I click the remove button and then save changes. Right, groups always have an extension number, right? Because you assign an extension number when you created it, but you can add additional extension numbers if you need to. Groups can also have their own phone numbers if you want them to, right? So you have the add from spare, buy from new. Also, you have the gear icon to update E911 or caller ID. Phone numbers on users or groups, right? They're available 24/7, right? They don't have hours of operation. So if someone has their personal cell phone on their user, and they're in either they have their own phone number on the user or they're in a group that has its own phone number, it's possible they're getting calls after hours. Group features. First up is ringback. This is a sort of like hold music for calls coming into the group. So when a call comes into a group, right, reaches out to the users, their phones start to ring, right? So like if Bob's phone is ringing, that ringing sound is piped back to the inbound caller, right? So ring back. If I don't want that ringing sound to play, then I enable this feature up here, and I choose a media file, or I upload a .wav or .mp3 file. Click upload, and then save changes. So right now, for instance, when people call this group, they hear, don't worry, be happy. Next up is next action. To me, this is the most important group feature. So first up here, you click to enable, and this is if no one answers a call, where do you want to send the caller to? Most often, it's to a voicemail box, but this pull down basically lets you send it back. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to an advanced call flow, which is kind of specialized, so I wouldn't worry about too much. If you have the call center, you can send it to one of your call queues. You can send it to a specific device, right? So a specific phone. You can send it to a specific user. You can send it to one of your other groups instead, or a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your staff members can make use of call forwarding. But again, if they have a cell phone device as one of their users, you don't really need to make use of that. And then caller ID prepend. This is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' phones. We recommend making use of one or the other, not both. I personally prefer text versus a number, but that might be just how my brain works. All right, so that's users and groups. So let's go back to main number here, or go to main number for the first time, rather. So first up, your main company numbers, right? So these are the main numbers, or the primary numbers most of your customers are dialing. Right, here's your option to add from spare or by new. Right, you can unassign if you don't want to use it as a main number. You got a little gear icon here for caller ID, E911, and prepend. Then you have your office hours strategy. Right, so you have 24-hour office, right? So you're open 24/7, or custom office hours. So you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open. Put a check mark in front of that day, and then choose your open hours in 24-hour or military time. And then also at the bottom, you have the option to have lunch hours for the days that you're open. You just put a check mark there, and then put your lunch hours in, again, that 24-hour or military time. And when you're done, click on Save Changes. And then we have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then over on the far right, you have the option to add holidays. Right? So you have single day, date range, or advanced. Each one of those will create a new row. So single day, like I have here for New Year's Day. Right? So you give it a name, you choose the month and the date, save changes. Right? If you want to get rid of one, you just click on a little trash icon. Date range, right? Christmas holiday, start date, and then end date, save changes. As a precaution, we do recommend you avoid using a date range that includes New Year's Day or New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, just because there's no year indicator. It hasn't been a problem in years, but again, just to be safe, we don't recommend it. Advanced is like here for Thanksgiving, where you give it a name, you choose the month, and then the second pull down, you have the option through first through fifth, as well as last, and then the day of the week. Right? In all cases, save changes, whether you added one or removed one. Right? Click Save Changes once you're done. And then we have incoming call handling. So for these four main numbers, how do I want my calls to route during my open hours, during my after hours, or during my holidays? Now these first three options down here, right? So I have the option here, virtual receptionists, etc. So these first three will be on every account. This fourth one only comes up in special cases, so I'm not going to go into that. So calls come in during my open hours. I haven't go into my virtual receptionist. This is a link, which will open up a big old box. And on the left is my main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through my phone system. Down here where it says add route, I click there and I get a new route option. This pull down allows you to select 0 through 9, as well as the star key, and you also have the default action. The second pull down is where do you want it to go? Right. So you have the user directory. You've got any users you've already added to the account. Groups, right? Any groups you've created. I've got any devices I have on the account. And any voicemail box on the account, and any media file I have on the account. Now, for the media file, right, if you select a media file, that's like you would use that for like hours of operation or directions. The downside of that is once the media file is done playing, the call ends. Right? If you send it to a specific device, right, if someone's not there to pick up, hopefully there's a voicemail built into the machine for the phone in question. Otherwise, the caller will end up hanging up. and be frustrated. Over here on the right, you have greetings, right? So this is where you say thank you for calling, and then you give your inbound caller directions, right? Pressing 1 for sale, 2 for support, that sort of thing. Text to speech, this allows you to type in a greeting up to 250 characters, not words. It's a computerized or robotic voice. Typically, I recommend this for people who are new to PBX systems or maybe in a startup, or just aren't sure how they want to do things yet, right? Like, still trying to, figure that out. Now, there's no charge for the text-to-speech greetings. However, the system names the file for you, and in this case, it would name them main, open hours, menu, and then TTS for text-to-speech. All right, so if you're going to make use of text-to-speech greetings, after you create one, right, we click Update, Save, and Save Changes. Over here, under Greetings, find that file, click on the little wrench icon, change the name. And that way, later on, if you need to switch it around, you can go back to the original one or what have you, right? Instead of just having like 5 or more main open hours menu TTS files and not knowing which one is which without having to listen to them first. Text-to-speech is limited to 250, I hope I said that, 250 characters, not words. You can upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. You can choose from an existing recording, right? This pull down will show any media file on the account, right? Hold music, voicemail greetings, main greetings. So that's why you want names that are easy for you to recognize. You can record it over the phone. Now, it says pick up a phone registered on the account. That means a VoIP phone, right? Because that way the system knows when a VoIP phone is registered, and it's part of the account, so it knows it's safe to use, right? That's a security feature. Now, if you want to use your own cell phone, for instance, right, down here under settings, where it says allow outside recording, you turn that on, right? Save and save changes. Then you can use any phone number to dial in. Now, you still need to use your PIN number, right? PIN number is going to change for every account, and it's specific to this time of day, right? So my open hours were 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, right? So if I call in on Saturday to change my main greeting, and I enter this PIN number, I'm going to get an invalid entry message, right? Because it's after hours. Professional recording services, when you click open, this opens a new tab, takes you to Snap Recordings, where you can order a greeting from professional voice actors and actresses. They bill you directly, typically via credit card. They email you the file, and then you can come up here to upload your own file. All right, so settings. First up, we have number of retries on this dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. So I have it set to 1, meaning my inbound caller can make 2 attempts to get through my phone tree. And here, let's turn that off. So this is default settings right now. So calls come in, right? They hear the main greeting. If they press 7, right? So that's not one of my main menu options. If I don't have an extension number 7, that counts as a mistry, right? So the system will play the main greeting a second time. The person can make another attempt. Now, if they put 0, 1, or 2, right, they'll get transferred to those people. Or if they enter a valid extension number, again, we'll get transferred to the appropriate person. But if they press 7 again, then the system will tell them we did not recognize your entry, and in this case, say goodbye. Right? If I go back, and if I have a default action on that second attempt, after that second failed attempt, the system would still say that we did not recognize your entry, but then transfer them to, in this case, my PBX directory, or wherever I chose it to go. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for an additional button press. So in that scenario where the person called in and pressed 7, the system will basically count for 5 seconds to see if that person's entering a second digit or even a third digit, right, to get to an extension number. We already covered allow dialing extensions. So here, right, allow dialing extensions, by default, this is on. And that just means if the inbound caller enters in a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension. If you turn that off, then your inbound callers can only press the menu options. Right? Entering an extension number will fail. And then the last option here, suppress the playing of invalid entry. Right? So if you don't want this system to play that we did not recognize your call message, then you turn this on, and then that way that message doesn't play anymore. But here, we'll set that back to default. Anyway, so any changes to your main menu, your greetings or your settings, you need to click Save here. You also need to click Save Changes here back under Incoming Call Handling. All right, so for my after hours, I use the second option here. I don't have to, right? I could use the first one if I wanted to, but this is my live operator answer option. So what it is, calls come in and I'm offering it, in this case, I'm offering it to my front desk group. It's a pull down though, so I can, select a user. I can select a queue, call queue if I'm making use of that. I can select a specific device, right? Or more likely one of my groups. The idea here is you're giving somebody or multiple people a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then the caller gets sent to a virtual receptionist. And this is my after hours receptionist, so I have different menu options, right? I have a different greeting in place, most likely, and I could have different settings as well. Third option, which I have for holidays. In this case, I'm playing first a media file, right? Saying, hey, we're closed for whatever holiday, and then I'm sending it to a specific voicemail box. Now, this pull down, right? I can send it to a user, I can send it to a group, a queue, a specific device. The other media file, obviously, and then also you have this option here of just skip to voicemail, right? So caller comes in, system picks up, send it to a voicemail box that I designated in this second pull down. So we click on Save Changes there. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, right? So you can add for spare, buy new. The custom greeting is text-to-speech, right? You can turn it on and type up to 250 characters. The main fax box number, you can only have the one number, which is why I don't have the option to add. But here, I can edit the fax box. The inbound fax notification email, right? You enter in an email address, and this email address gets sent an email every time a fax gets completed or attempted, right? So if someone calls your fax number and hangs up, that counts as a failed inbound fax attempt, so this person would still get an email. The email permissions, this is designed to put your company email domain here, and this would allow then anyone, in this case at VirtualPBX, to send out a fax on this account, even if they're not a user on the account. Again, this is that +1 area code and phone number, @ symbol, the account realm, and then attach a PDF or TIFF. All right, auto attendance, this is a plan-specific feature, so it's available on some plans and not others. Couple use cases. One is for submenuing, right? So like press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Then you would create an English and Spanish queue, or sorry, auto attendant. The other is if you have several businesses and you want them all in the same account. That way each business can have its own auto attendant, for example, have its own main greeting, have its own phone numbers. Up here at the top is how you create a greeting or auto attendant. Wow, I am really misspeaking today. Right, you need to give it a name and an extension number. The extension number is not something any of your customers would ever know, but your staff members could use it to transfer calls to the correct auto attendant. Once attendant is created, you can click on the name here. Now it defaults like this, where it says it's unavailable in main menu, and that means it's a standalone attendant, right? So it's designed to be its own business, for example. Right here where it says unavailable in main menu, I can click on that. So now it's available in main menu. So that means it can be a submenu option. meaning like, let's say one for English, two for Spanish, right? That sort of thing. It would be an option under my main menu or as a next action, for example, from a group. You also have the option to delete it if you no longer need it. Auto attendants can have their own numbers, right? They can have multiple, so you can buy new, buy add spare, buy new, right? You got a little gear icon here if you need to. The extension number box here, again, users can have, or auto attendants can have multiple extension numbers. I haven't really seen that much in use. And then the settings, click on the little wrench icon. So you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This is going to match what we set up under the main number. Excuse me. But in all cases, you only have the option to go to the virtual receptionist, right? But you set up the main greeting, your menu options, etc. You would click on save and save changes here. The devices tab, right, shows all your devices. Black means you've turned it off, right, which is over here under enable. Red means it's unregistered, meaning it's could be just simply offline. Could be it's someone hasn't logged in. Could be someone just had they just changed their router, so they're trying to figure out how to get back online. Green means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. Up here at the top, you can add devices here, right? Just like we did under the users. The main difference, again, for the soft phone, you can only add a third-party soft phone here. No adding the VirtualPBX soft phone. If you click on the little wrench icon here for device, under advanced, you have the emergency caller ID or emergency E911, right? So you can select one of your phone numbers that has an address, and so that way this device, when this device calls 911, it uses whatever phone number you selected here, right? So like I can put this phone number here in place. So now that's the phone number that gets sent out to emergency services, and if there's an address associated with it, it would be displayed here, but that would also be sent to emergency services. Right. Greetings tab shows all your greetings on the account, right? So all your media files, right? Name, oops, pretty self-explanatory. The source, TTS means text-to-speech. Upload means it was uploaded to the system. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here allows you to play back the file directly in your browser. If that doesn't work, then down here over to the right, you can download the file, and that way listen to the media file of your choice. And then you have the edit icon, or little wrench, right? This is where you can change the name or delete it if you don't need it anymore. All right, the numbers tab shows your numbers on the account. It starts you off on your numbers in use, right? This just shows you where your numbers are assigned to, right? You can't unassign or assign numbers here. You can always adjust the gear information, right? The caller ID, E911, or prepend. Spare numbers shows the numbers you're not in use. Now, if you want to remove a number, first it needs to be a spare number, right? Then you click on the little box in front of it. Up here at the top is now an option to delete. So that you're sure, you confirm the deletion. Click continue, and now I have one less phone number on my account. Right, so buy, right? You can buy local toll-free numbers. It just adds them directly here to your spare number tab. Port number is just if you want to move a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So say you want to port a number from Verizon to VirtualPBX, click on new port request, you give it a name, choose local toll-free, and then the system wants you to upload a PDF copy of your bill. It's going to ask you to fill out a couple forms further down. It will also give you the opportunity to download a blank letter of agency or LOA. That does need to be completed and signed and then uploaded to the port process here, and then you submit all that information. The LOA information, right? So it asks for like your company name and address. That should match what your current carrier has on file. It does need a signature, right? A digital signature is fine, or you can print it out, sign it, and scan it back in. But like just typing your name twice will get rejected. Printing your name twice will get rejected, right? Typing it once and printing it once also gets rejected, and that just delays when your port will complete. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about 1 week to complete. Local numbers, on average, about 2 to 3 weeks, and that assumes everything is correct. If there's an error, we double check to make sure we didn't have a typo on our side anywhere. Or like in the case of address, if there's two different addresses that could be in use, we check both. But beyond that, we'll let you know saying, hey, this is the rejection that we got. And like in the case of addresses, we don't often get very specific information. Right? We just get address mismatch. It could be the street, could be the zip code. And at that point, you'd want to contact the current carrier to find out what the correct information is. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out, which you would need to get from them ahead of time. Some of them put it right on their bill. The most common, so cell phone numbers, as far as seeing, every one of those has required a PIN number to port out. That's a security feature from the cell phone carriers, because once your phone number ports out from your cell phone, that cell phone stops working because it doesn't have a number anymore. And also some Canadian carriers also require a PIN number. Voicemail boxes, this shows your voicemail boxes on the account. If there's an entry under the user column, that means it's a user-created voicemail box, right? It was created at the same time the user was. If it doesn't, that means it was a system-generated voicemail box or a voicemail box you create up here at the top of the page. Give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. Click on the wrench icon here. So when you click on the wrench icon on an existing voicemail box, you can see the name, but most importantly, you can see the voicemail box number and the PIN number, right? So that way, that's what you use to check messages over the phone or to change the greeting of the phone or that voicemail message. Under Advanced, you have greeting media. This allows you to upload a particular media file that you would want to use, right? Or you can use a pull down to select an existing media file. So like if you have a generic voicemail message that you use for your voicemail boxes, that's where you would upload it. Now you see there's two options here, right? Media and temporary. Temporary is for your out of office or vacation message. So if both media and temporary have a file selected, the temporary file plays, the media file does not. Once you choose temporary back to none, then the media file will play. Then click on Save Changes if you made any changes. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes have one built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login, that's the recipient. For any voicemail boxes you create on this page here, you'd want to click Add and then enter the email address of the people or person or people that you want to add, right? So each person you need to click Add to add multiple email addresses. And then once you're done, you would click on Save Changes. And then options. So once you have a greeting media in place and a recipient in place, up here at the top, click on Already Set Up. Right, just click on the box here. You can also double check to make sure that the attached voicemails to emails is enabled. And if it's a particularly busy voicemail box, you might want to delete after notification as well. Text forward is a new feature. You would have to click the add-on under the account page to enable it initially. But up here, you click Add Number. You choose one of the numbers on your account, and then you choose either an email address or a webhook, one or the other, not both. And then you click on Create Text Forward, and that basically just means when a text comes into this phone number, it gets forwarded to the email address or the webhook that you designated. Right, so it's only for inbound. It's one way. Call logs shows the call history on the account. So you have today, this week, this month. The green arrows to the right are incoming calls to the system. So a call came in, and you can see the device that it went to. This one here has got recovery on time or expire. that usually indicates a network problem with that device. Let's see if we have, right here, you see it had normal clearing, so it had no problems. Yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. And let's see. Right, and when you click on it here, you see this actually came out from this particular device. You typically do want to see normal clearing on the calls. That means the system, as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally. You can download these as CSV files. Go to custom, you can change the date range. The system will allow you to go back up to 1 year. After that, the information is not available. Or you actually, to go further back, you have to contact our support team and we have to make an escalation to our engineers. They can go back up to 18 months total. And after that, the information is not available at all. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. Basically, these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is a page under our support pages. There's also a page called the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the commands, but also the context help available. That's the dashboard. So next up is blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. All right, so you would click edit blacklist. If you don't have one created, you would click on add, or you can click on an existing one. Right, but you need to give it a name and then choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? By default, this is off. Right, but you can turn it on, and that means if a call comes in and does not have valid inbound caller ID, right, it says anonymous, they can't get through. Right, they get a busy tone. Beyond that, down here, right, where it says list of existing numbers, you click on add number, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And if you keep clicking add until you're done adding numbers. Once you are done, you click save down here at the bottom. You go back to settings, and you make sure that your list is on the right-hand side under selected. Right, so you might have to click and drag, for instance, and then click update. Faxes, this is your fax manager. Lets you get to any fax box on the account. So you can see the date and time involved and where, what number it went to, number of pages, you can download it, etc. If you put a check mark here, you can also remove a fax from the system. Outbound fax tab, then you can get to any fax box on the account. You see the date and time, phone numbers involved, number of pages, you can download it. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine or fax number. Right now, that could be busy tone. That could also be like there was an initial connection, but something interrupted it, like someone lost power on the other side. The email to fax logs, this would show any requests on the system that the system could not process for some reason or another. You see the email addresses involved, the date and the time. If you click on the little eyeball icon here, under errors, you would see in this case there is no valid attachment, meaning it was not a PDF or a TIFF file. Could be they didn't add an attachment, right? They forgot, or they added like a JPEG. Number manager, this just takes you back to your spare numbers page. Reports, this is the advanced reporting feature. So this opens a new tab, takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature. So if this interests you, you definitely want to talk to our services team. I don't believe, unfortunately, since it opens up a new tab, it doesn't work in my streaming software. However, in the description notes, there is a link there for the advanced reporting demo. I would recommend taking a look at that. But this basically allows you to create your own reports and get more data about your call activity. Voicemails. This takes you to your voicemail box manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account and see what messages they have, the date, the times, phone numbers involved. You can play them back. You can download them. If you click on the box in front of it, you can move it to a different voicemail box, right? If it's to the wrong person, for example, as well as change its status. The call center, this opens up a new tab. It takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com, uses your dash login to log in. These are ACD queues, right? Call queues. You'd want to, in the show notes, look at the ACD queues pro demo. That's going to cover how the queues work. Uh, they're a more advanced version of groups, right? Like staff members can log themselves in and out of the queues. They can mark themselves away. So like when they go to lunch. Uh, Queues, you can also, managers can eavesdrop in on a call, right? So they can listen in as well as whisper to the staff member or even barge in and basically take over the call, whereas you can't do that in groups. Dynamic caller ID, this is another plan specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So first up, one I have down here, right? You click on create new rule, you give it a name up here at the top, choose a phone number on your account, right, from the pull down. And then in this case, I said, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 408 number from their VoIP phones, the system will automatically change their caller ID to the 669 phone number. Right? 669 and 408 are overlays for each other. The other option here is, again, give it a name. I choose a 323 phone number. In this case, if my staff members start a phone call by dialing star 550, right, then they enter the area code and phone number they're reaching out to, the system will change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of the other staff members. Doesn't matter what phone they're using. You can see who's on a call. They'd have a blue bar and show you the phone numbers involved. Right, you can see who's available or who's busy. You can also sort by devices versus employees. It's kind of grayed out here, but up top, these are the active inbound calls. So each one would have a box showing you who they're speaking to. And then if there's anyone who used the call parking feature from each feature codes, the call we show the phone number of the person who called in as well as a parking spot number. Recording Manager, this opens up a new tab, takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, uses your dash login to log in, and that's where you would view your call recordings. You can listen to them, download them, delete them. Webhooks, another plan-specific feature. You actually want to talk to our sales team if this interests you, but basically this is programming to some degree. It allows you to link your Dash account to other software. You can go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done to link Dash to other software, as well as then you can also, under the show notes, there should be the introduction to Zapier demo, which also makes use of webhooks, gives you an idea of what you can do there. And lastly, I mentioned this earlier, the user portal. So every user has their own user portal, takes you right to your voicemail box by default. Shows the date, the time, phone number, right? You can play it back, you can download it. If you click on the box in front of it, then you can change the status as well. Call history tab shows your call histories to and from, right? You can change your date range and then hit filter to see more of your calls. The fax tab would only work for users that have their own fax box, but they could see their fax history in that case. Contact list basically shows everything on your Dash account, right? So this allows your staff members to transfer calls to other users or groups or auto attendants, etc. It's not something they can edit, right? They can basically change the order in terms of how they view it, but they can't add anything here or remove anything. Conference tab, this is for users that have their own conference bridge enabled, or you've enabled the conference feature on them. On the far right here is where they adjust their moderator pin, right, for themselves, and then the participant number for people, anyone else. They can choose if people enter muted or deafened, as well as having entry and exit tones. Once you're in a conference, you would come here. The plus icon allows you to invite other Dash users to a conference. block a conference, right? It means no one else can join. Uh, Mute everybody, unmute everybody, and then end the conference call. Also, while on the conference, each moderator has their own box, as well as each participant. This allows you to like mute a specific person or kick out a specific person if necessary. The settings and devices tab right here is where your staff members would enable call forwarding on their own. They just put a check mark here. They put the phone, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and click on save. And likewise, when they don't need it anymore, they just uncheck and then click save. And that is everything. And I haven't seen any questions come through. So I thank you for your time today. And again, we will not have training next Tuesdays in observance of the 4th of July holiday, but we'll be back on Tuesday, July 11th. And our service team is hosting another business SMS webinar on Thursday. I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.